Welcome to Critical DMG, a podcast about two best friends who might have grown up but never grew out of their love for the Game Boy. We will be playing and reviewing every North American title released on Nintendo's original handheld console. This is episode 12. I'm Tony, and I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
Interesting. And I'm Jeff, and today we are talking about Hyper Lode Runner. So interested to get it back around to Tony's intro, but talking about Hyper Lode Runner. But before we do that, Tony, can you remind us of our quiz question from last week?
My bit will make sense in a little while, I promise. But yes, I would be more than happy to go over the question. So our question from the golf episode was about how there were a lot of golf games for the sort of Nintendo sports titles franchise that they had going on. Some of them featured Mario. Not all of them did, but they sort of all followed the same blueprint that the original golf game on the NES put forward. There was a golf game that released right after the one we covered, and the question was, which one was that? Jeff, did you know?
No, I don't think so, unless it's just like Mario Golf or something like that.
Well, it's not Mario Golf, but it's NES Open Tournament Golf, which was one of the games that did feature not only Mario, but other Mario franchise characters as playable characters in it, even though it wasn't technically Mario Golf. It's like a fan favorite. I think it's just like a really good golf game and also very charming. I don't have a lot of experience playing it, though.
Interesting.
Right.
So, with our quiz question out of the way, quick opinion. Tony, would you recommend someone play Hyper Lode Runner?
No. Hard no.
Yeah, I agree. Pretty easy no for me. But tell us why the Game Boy or the devs thought we should have with a little back of the box read.
Sure, let's see. Hyper Lode Runner. Earth date 2264. The renegade Red Lord of Darkness has overthrown the United World Government with his army of cyborg fanatics. Millions of political prisoners are being tortured in his infamous Labyrinth of Doom far beneath the surface of the planet. Very little is known about this subterranean maze of brick-walled catacombs, just vague rumors about the hidden millions in stolen gold guarded by a ruthless band of mutant cyborg zombies commanded by the merciless General Zod. Only one thing is sure, none of your predecessors have ever come out of this dreaded place alive, but you must find a way out with a load of gold big enough to launch the counter-revolution. You are the last hope, the last of the great Lode Runners. Wow. I am not going to bury the lead here at all. That description blows whatever this game is trying to do out of the water. There is nothing going on here like that.
Yeah, I guess we'll talk more about the story in the creative discussion, but yeah, reading the manual, it kind of has the same story in it, and an interesting choice compared to the game itself. So this is a sequel to Lode Runner, the original, I suppose, that was originally released in 1983, I believe. This was released February of 1990, so still working our way early in the 90s. So it's just a sequel to Lode Runner.
Did you see who is responsible for the development and publishing of the game, though?
Is it Bandai? Bandai is on the box, at least.
Right. So Bandai is attached, but the original Lode Runner and this one too, and pretty much all of them, was a Broderbund game.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't know if you recall from when we were kids, Broderbund was everywhere in the 90s. They were the, edutainment company behind things like Kid Pix and Carmen Sandiego. So when I saw their name here, I was like, whoa, really? Same company? And yeah, it totally is.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't recognize it when I saw it. I recognize, Carmen Sandiego and those things, but interesting. Yeah, I did not realize that.
Mm-hmm.
But is there anything else with the background or anything like that you want to really get into, or do you want to dive into the mechanics?
No, I have, I think, kind of a lot to say, more than I thought about things, but only once we've dove into the mechanical section.
All right, let's do it. So, starting off with a quick breakdown of the mechanics. So, the objective of the game is you traverse the level and you pick up all the piles of gold, I guess to start the counter revolution. But pretty simple controls: left and right, move you left and right, up and down, allow you to go up and down ladders. And then the A and B button allow you to dig up the ground directly to your right and left. So that's pretty much it. Those are the controls, and pretty self-explanatory and intuitive, I suppose, but...
And that's where my bit comes from. It's a game about digging holes. That's where the "I'm tired of this, Grandpa" is from the movie Holes, which is about digging holes. That's all this game is. Digging holes. You're just digging holes in the ground. And I'm tired of it.
Okay, fair. It does make sense. I don't know if I would have gotten that without the explanation, but that's fair.
Someone in the audience did. I am confident.
Yeah, with that, how far did you get in the game, Tony? There are 50 levels. Did you beat all 50? What was your gameplay experience like?
No, I did not get very far in this one at all. I actually think I know actually that I got less far into this one than I did Boxel, and I think it's for a pretty specific reason, because in the last episode, at the end, when we had talked about how we were going to be covering Hyper Lode Runner, and I said I thought I recognized the game, I did. I have played Lode Runner before. Not this one, but one of the older versions. And one of the big differences, and I think what really threw me for a loop with this version, as far as what I was maybe expecting of it compared to the Lode Runner that I had kind of built up in my head, is that in the earlier games, they're single screen puzzles. So you're able to kind of always see where the enemies are, where the gold is, how you're able to make your way around the playing field. Whereas this version is a scrolling screen game where you're moving around and the camera is following you. And that made a lot of difference that I didn't think it would, but it was really jarring, I guess is the only way I can think to describe it.
Yeah, so as you're playing, you're being chased by the, mutant cyborg zombies?
Mutant cyborg zombies commanded by the merciless General Zod.
And essentially, if they touch you, game over, or you lose a life and have to restart the level. If you dig yourself down into a hole, you can't go anywhere. It'll refill, and you'll die and have to start the level over. So... yeah, you're navigating these levels it's a puzzle game. So you're trying to figure out how to dig the holes correctly to get to the gold that you need to without trapping yourself while avoiding the zombies. So not being able to see the whole layout kind of makes it a little bit more difficult. Planning out how you're moving, all of that fun stuff, definitely does that. Did you know that you could hit start and then select and see the whole map?
I did not know. Was that in the manual and I missed that?
It is in the manual, which is a little questionable, I would say, as far as controls are concerned, because if you just hit select without pausing first, it restarts the level. So
oh, lovely.
Yeah, so you have to make sure you pause, which isn't a big thing, but definitely got me at least once where I thought I had paused and just hit select and then restarted the level. But that does give you the ability to see the entire level, so you can kind of plan out a little bit better.
I don't know that would have really saved it for me, just because that's still like another layer of obfuscation between what I am doing, the actions that I'm taking, and like the puzzle itself. I'm glad that it's there. I probably would have been nice if I had known about it. Like I said, I guess I must have just missed that in the manual. Fundamentally, I don't think that it would have really reshaped my opinion on the mechanics here a whole lot.
Yeah, I can understand that. So I guess I played for maybe about an hour or so, and I beat 2 levels. So out of the 50 levels, I beat 2. There was a bit of a learning curve. Level 1 was mainly just kind of figuring out how to move, how to avoid things, just the general mechanics. But then level 2, I ended up having to redo it multiple times, not because I didn't know the solution. Like, the solution was pretty simple, in my opinion, but I would just accidentally dig a hole in the wrong spot.
One mistake was all it took every single time. Like, you would dig a hole and, accidentally trap yourself in the ground, and you can't climb out of the hole you dug. You can't, there's no take back button like there was in Boxel that gave you like a free rewind one time. If you did it wrong, you literally just had to sit there and watch your guy wait for the ground to swallow him up.
Yeah, it was extremely punishing. And, specifically kind of the reason I stopped playing it after level 2 was I started making mistakes because I was getting bored with the gameplay, because I knew what I needed to do. And so it was just kind of going through the actions of doing it. And then I would start thinking about something else and accidentally dig a hole in the wrong spot or something like that. And then I would have to do it all over again. And again, after multiple times of doing that, it was kind of like a compounding issue. I kept getting more and more bored and kept making more and more mistakes, which meant I had to redo the entire level. And so it was just kind of this not fun loop that I was in of, I knew exactly how to solve the puzzle. I went through it fine, but then would just do something stupid because I was thinking about something else, and didn't lead to extremely fun gameplay, I suppose.
It really felt like almost similar to perfecting a speed run. You have to make sure that every gear in the machine or every move that you're going to make is the right one so that you're able to get through the level, and one mistake can ruin your run. And that's how this felt. I would watch the enemies move around. I would take note of where the piles of gold were and try to formulate in my head the optimal way to dig down, whether that meant going in sequence, going back and forth, going as close to straight down as I could manage, like whatever it was. I would puzzle all of that out, and then I would just have to keep refining it over and over until I got what felt like a almost flawless run. And obviously someone really into Lode Runner and more experienced could clear these levels way faster and without the same problems that I did. But it felt like without achieving that close to perfect run, I would never have cleared any of these puzzles. I'm right there with you. I think I only actually managed to beat one or two myself. The third one is the one that sticks out in my mind as the first one that I beat. I don't remember if I did any more than that. And even that puzzle still took me many retries because I would fall in a hole, or I would misjudge an enemy digging themselves out of the ground because they can leave the ground, you can't.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah, so like they can recover and come back after you, but you are stuck in the ground. So like, okay. Yeah, punishing really does seem like the way to go about it, but I really think having played, I should have gone back and played one of the older Lode Runners before the episode just to like really confirm. But I really feel that the fact that you were not able to have full vision of the puzzle scene at all times was detrimental to the game. I know Lode Runner is really popular as a series, like it's gone through a bunch of iterations and stuff, but I would wonder how much this one stacks up for Lode Runner fans simply based on that mechanic, because I don't know, I'm not like deep into Lode Runner source material or whatever, but I don't think many of them, if any other than this one, use a scrolling screen. I'm almost positive most of them are single screen puzzle games.
Yeah, and I can understand why they did that for the smaller screen of the Game Boy. It does make sense.
Sure, yeah, of course.
With the limitations of, I guess, the hardware that they're dealing with. But yeah, it also does make it more difficult to solve a puzzle when you're having to plan a precise route around enemies and things like that. It does make it a lot more difficult, especially if you don't know to hit pause and select to see it all. Which again, it's just kind of a weird menu decision, how did you feel about the menu controls generally?
I thought everything was pretty simple. I liked that you were able to select your level right from the start. You didn't have to do puzzle 1, 2, 3 and unlock them. You could just skip around. That's what I did because I didn't actually solve puzzles 1 or 2 before I went to puzzle 3.
Okay.
So yeah. I did like that, and I found them easy enough to navigate. I thought their choices of buttons in the menu were kind of not what I was expecting.
I agree. I think it was absurd.
Yeah, A and B to select your level. Yeah, instead of like left and right. That decision made no sense to me.
The controls on the title screen, you use the select button to change whether or not you wanted, one player versus edit mode. Again, not up and down, which I feel is more common. And then you use the start button to select the thing, which, okay, relatively fine. And then it brings you to the next screen where it shows you the number of lives and what level you want to start on. Again, not using left or right, you use A and B to go up and down the level selection. And then you use start again to select. And it's just a very bizarre... I don't know why they chose those controls, but it just very bizarre. Ultimately doesn't matter a whole lot with the gameplay, but just found it absurd. And as I was getting annoyed and, restarting levels and then hitting A to try and get back into the level, and then that was actually just moving what level I wanted to start on, it was just like kind of that little extra bit of frustration. But
sure,
to your point, I did like that it immediately gives you level select. So you can go up to level 16 for free. And then after 16, you have to use a password system. But I liked that it gave you that option.
I was pretty disappointed that there was no way to do anything with the bad guys other than dig a hole and like walk over them. The fact that they were so much more mobile than you and could recover, they could take gold and all those sorts of things was just really aggravating, especially because they were pretty fast. Yeah. And the way that their behavior in tracking you was programmed, or like seemingly programmed anyway, they were really, really focused on getting to you as fast and as short as possible, which, while exploitable, did make for some really quick ends to things, just because they could pin you either like in a hole or against a wall or like on a ladder or something, and they can climb ladders, they can follow after you really close, and the only thing you can do to stop them, I mean, other than just trapping them in the hole anyway, is like timing it just right so that the hole will refill itself while they're still trapped in it. But doing that doesn't even really matter because they basically instantly respawn.
Yeah.
It really felt like, I guess, yeah, punishing is just the only way to really describe it. If they would have just given you a way to get rid of the bad guys and then they're gone, they're worth points or something like that, I think I would have been less annoyed, because then at least I could have taken the rest of the time to, maybe more slowly and methodically get through the puzzle. But I'm sure that all of that is design decision intended to like ratchet up the tension on solving the puzzles and like keep you moving and stuff. But it was grating for me. I would have rather been able to take care of the enemies in like a more permanent way, like trap them or just eliminate them, whatever it is, so that they're not a threat anymore. And then I can spend the rest of my time thinking over the puzzle so I don't make the same kind of hasty mistakes because, oh no, one of the cyborg mutant zombies is closing in. What do? Oh, I dig a hole and then, I trapped myself.
Yeah. And I wonder how much of it is a design decision to keep you from kind of like soft locking yourself. Because, level 2, you needed to use the zombie. So it seems like the robots are necessary for a lot of the levels. And so I wonder if the devs wanted to make it to where, you wouldn't soft lock yourself. If you kill the robots and they're gone forever, that they respawn and so you can still use them.
Right.
Now, if you dig one wrong hole, you essentially soft lock yourself anyway. So I don't know how much that actually holds up, but maybe that was kind of their thought process.
I think it's just me bouncing off of the mechanics of the game fundamentally. I just did not really enjoy the way that this game was presented and how its mechanics tied in to give the Lode Runner experience on the Game Boy. And I think the last thing that I have to say about mechanic stuff, which sort of ties into some aesthetic things, but I want to make note of it here mechanically. Would you have a better opinion of the game / its mechanics if instead of the way that it was presented to us here, it was actually something more like what Boxel did in the sections where everything was scaled out?
I didn't have a big issue with, I guess, the scrolling aspect of it. Probably because I hadn't played any of the previous ones, so I didn't know any better.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I didn't have a huge issue with that. And I did find the start select thing to be able to see the entire map pretty quickly. So I think those two things kind of didn't have me bouncing off of it.
Yeah, it might just be the expectations of a Lode Runner game that I was already coming into this with.
See, that's why you just don't play the other games. Then you have no expectations, and the game can let you down.
I thought about it. I was trying to remember. You're so obnoxious. I was trying to remember which one it was that I had played, because obviously there's been a bunch of them. You know, like with the Apple II being, I think, the first one, but like,
yeah,
I couldn't remember where I had played it. I'm assuming it was either on like an early Mac or an early Windows machine, some sort of like shareware port of it or something probably. But I know I've played one of the other versions of Lode Runner. And so, you know, I can't just yank my Lode Runner prior experience out of my brain. It was honestly pretty shocking that I had it there in the first place. But yeah, it's probably just that. It's probably that I was thinking Lode Runner game, and this was not it, apart from, oh yes, you dig holes and then the enemies fall into them. I don't know. It's interesting that we have those two perspectives on it, as I had played a version of Lode Runner and you haven't. You didn't bounce off of it in the same ways that I did. But yeah, I guess that's just how it is.
So we'll end the mechanics section on a high note, because it does have an edit mode. And apparently the original Lode Runner was, I think, one of the first games to offer an edit mode.
Yeah, I read that too.
And I always think that's a nice touch. You know, Boxel had it as well, so maybe it's not as unique, but always love an edit mode, being able to kind of create your own adventure and whatnot. So I will give it some credit that, yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, I didn't tool around with that just because, at least with Boxel, I enjoyed what the mechanics had to offer and could kind of envision making a puzzle for myself out of it. This one, I didn't attempt the edit mode at all. I probably will, just to say that I have, but it didn't grab me in the same way. Nice that it's there, but like...
Yeah, I think that does it for the mechanics. So I think it's time for an ad break, and then we'll come back and talk about some mutant cyborg zombies.
Ad break.
I'm sorry, Tony, but some of these older Game Boy games are just bad.
Oh, right. Like you could do any better?
You know what? I probably could.
Yeah? Then do it. Make your own Game Boy game.
Tony, this isn't the 90s. I am not learning assembly.
Not necessary. Just use GB Studio. GB Studio is easy to use game building software that lets you make games for your favorite retro gaming rectangle. With versions available for Windows, Mac, and Linux, it's never been easier to make a game for the Game Boy. And GB Studio's multiple project modes means you can develop for the original DMG, the Super Game Boy, or the Game Boy Color. Using a drag and drop style of visual scripting means you don't even need any prior programming knowledge to get started. And the best part is, your work can be built and exported as a fully playable Game Boy ROM, ready for any emulator or flash cart you choose. Learn more or download GB Studio for yourself at www.gbstudio.dev. You know, the original Game Boy might not have been internet connected, but we sure are. So if you'd like to reach out to us, you could find us on Blue Sky at criticaldmgpod.bsky.social, or you could email us at criticaldmgpod@gmail.com, and either of those will get to us faster than you would expect for people who are stuck on tech from the 1990s. And we're back. We had a pretty good run for a little while with the aesthetics discussion, and the music for most of the games had been good to passable.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it was even great. There were some real good tracks recently. Hyper Lode Runner does not have that same distinction. I think the music was pretty grating and not fun to listen to.
I could see that. I put it very much so more just kind of like in the middle, like middling at best. But it didn't get to the point like some other games where I've actively turned it off and started listening to something else, but it wasn't good. It was there. It existed, but I could see if I was playing it for too much longer, I definitely would have turned it off because it doesn't add anything. It's kind of repetitive and like a little bit higher pitch than I feel like it needs to be, especially when you're already kind of frustrated at the game. It did not do anything to help.
There's intro and outro. They're not like jingles, but shorter little tunes that don't loop. They're just kind of like to introduce you or like open up and close out the levels. And I thought those were pretty cute. I felt that they were charming enough on their own, but the actual level music was just not. I don't know. I wasn't even playing the game for like a super long time, and it was just really wearing on me.
Yeah, I agree. It was not the best.
I think maybe what made it worse, though, was that the overall sound design was bad too. Just really basic. The sounds didn't make me feel kind of anything. And Wizards and Warriors was sort of the same. Like there was a lot of the sound didn't match what the game was trying to make you feel. And this was exactly that. At no point was I ever thinking that these sounds were cyborg mutant zombies or digging a hole or anything like that. It was all just like bleeps and plinks, and it was bad. I don't know how you felt about it, but I was not. I was over the whole package by the time I was done.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I may be slightly higher on it than you are, but that is not a good thing at all. It's just I found it just very whatever. It did not. It's a puzzle game, and I guess it's an action puzzle game, so whatever, you want to have some feeling in there, but at the end of the day, it's a puzzle game. I feel like I want the music to be a little bit more chill, a little bit more unnoticeable, because I want to be thinking about the puzzle, and it just didn't hit the mark in my opinion.
I don't even think that I would have minded. Like, I don't have a problem with like puzzle game or board game or whatever music being like jazzy or snappy or anything like that. I actually think that a lot of really good video game music from like this era and beyond comes from those kinds of games, the unassuming puzzle games and board games and card games and things like that. So I would have been pleasantly surprised if the music here was really good. It turned out that it wasn't, but it wouldn't have shocked me. And like, I would have even been okay if it was more of a backing track to try and match you're a political prisoner or running around trying to collect all this gold or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, okay, throw in some like Mission Impossible style music, espionage music or something, like anything. But I don't know. I think my bottom line as far as aesthetics is it all felt so mismatched in every way.
I could see that.
And the only thing that I really liked about it was the windscreens. I thought they were really cute.
Yeah. So when you beat a level, and I specifically have this in my notes to ask you about, when you beat a level, you climb up a ladder, and then you go into, kind of like a windscreen where it's like a little party popper. I don't know what those things are called. Pinata.
Yeah, it's like a party popper.
That kind of like pops and confetti goes everywhere. And then your guy kind of gives like, I don't know, the muscle flexing bicep stance. And that was really cute. But it was, kind of the only thing, and you had to beat a level to see it. So,
and it was the only part of the game that made me think it was anything like it was depicted on the cover and the back of the box. The cover art on here and like the manual art and stuff definitely leads you to believe that something is going on. It looks like a Mega Man or a Ghouls and Ghosts kind of vibe, something like that. It definitely leads you to believe there's more going on than what is actually happening in this game.
Yeah. So we already kind of touched on the scrolling aspect not being your favorite, but how do you like the rest of the visuals, the sprites, and just kind of the readability of it all?
I would never have probably assumed that most of the things are what they say they are here. Obviously, a ladder is a ladder, and the like brick texture on the floor is serviceable, but piles of gold, it almost just looks like dirt. Like almost like when you dig a hole, this is what piles up off to the side. The sprites are fine. I think that they're cute enough when it comes to like typical Game Boy 16x16s. I think they're fine. I mean, that's about all I really have to say is fine. Like there was no, as far as I could tell, and maybe you got farther than me or explored some of the later levels. Does the tile set change? Does like anything change, or is it the same as Boxel where it just looks the same puzzle after puzzle?
From what I saw, it is essentially the same. There are the bricks, and then there are non-diggable blocks. Overall, I agree with you. I think everything is it's serviceable. I think it is good enough that it makes sense as you're playing. It's, in my opinion, like pretty good at being readable, and kind of from first glance, you can kind of distinguish all the different blocks. And, even though the piles of gold don't look like piles of gold, it's kind of obvious, like, okay, I need to pick that thing up. So I think they did an all right job with that, but definitely agree with you that it's serviceable. That's about it.
So I've been thinking while we've been having this discussion.
Dangerous.
And very. Sometimes, as we saw with Super Mario Land, and I'm sure that we'll see, with other games in this journey that we're undertaking here, when a game or game property came to the Game Boy, they kind of like shook it up a little bit. Super Mario Land is not exactly like the Super Mario games that came before it. And I almost wish that because they made this game a screen scroller instead of the older style, or like, I guess, main style, whatever you want to call it, of single screen puzzle from the other Lode Runner games, I wish that they had taken more liberties to maybe make this kind of its own thing. One thing that we haven't really said in this discussion at all is it's got a subtitle. It's technically Hyper Lode Runner, The Labyrinth of Doom, isn't it? They could have definitely taken this wild story that was penned here, which I do think is actually like the canon story for like all of Lode Runner. Don't quote me on that, but I think that is like the story that they kind of all have at their like core. But they could have taken that story and like made it something else. If they were already going to change the way that it was presented to fit the Game Boy aesthetically and mechanically, then I think I would have just liked to see something done with it to make it a little more unique to the Game Boy. Because instead, it feels so different from the Lode Runner that I had already played that I don't like it, but it doesn't feel like it's doing anything unique to the Game Boy that makes me be like, well, you should still maybe play it on the Game Boy because like that's missing here.
Yeah, essentially just like a worse copy or version of another game, which is never good.
Yeah, pretty much.
So kind of the last thing I wanted to touch on, and something that you have touched on multiple times throughout, is the story. So I feel like the gameplay is very for everyone, childish. You know, it's a puzzle game. I guess you're destroying cyborgs, but they instantly respawn, so can't really call that violence. But the story is talking about bloody revolutions and torture and all of this, and it just feels so out of place to me.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that. And I was either reading something or having a conversation with somebody just recently about how these older games were using cover art and manual art and promotional art, like ads and like magazine print ads and stuff like that, not to falsely advertise. I don't think that at any point, even using this game specifically as an example, you would look at the cover art or the box art or the manual art or anything like that and be like, yes, this exactly is what I'm going to see in this game. It is going to look exactly like this. This character is going to be depicted 100% accurately, whatever. You know that a Game Boy game can only look a certain way, especially back at the time.
Mm-hmm.
There was no pulling the wool over anyone's eyes to be like, oh, this is what you're hoping to get. Ta-da, it actually looks like Hyper Lode Runner on the Game Boy. Doesn't that suck? It was to fire up your imagination and give you something to kind of base what you are envisioning happening, what the pixels on the screen are trying to tell you is happening as a story and as a series of events unfolding. So like,
yeah, but if you were to look at this cover art and read the back of the box, I would think this is more of like an action, maybe shooter or something like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely not digging holes.
Right.
You know, I don't know why he has a gun.
Exactly.
To dig
100%.
holes,
That's what I'm saying. If they were going to go that route anyway, I wish that they would have made it something more bespoke, like more unique to this, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If it's going to be this anyway, but you're going to still render the sprites the way that they do and try to make the game look the way that it does here, why not just make it into something else? Why not give it that, oh, actually, in Hyper Lode Runner Labyrinth of Doom, the offshoot of the Lode Runner series, similarly to how Wizards and Warriors on the Game Boy was X, even though there was only 2 prior. Like, if you're going to just spin it off anyway, have him running around doing action platforming or something. I don't know. I'm sure that that's like sacrosanct or whatever for Lode Runner. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think that touches on a bigger topic that I'm sure we'll run into a lot more. I know as a kid, I would go and rent games from Blockbuster, and all I had to go off of was kind of the cover art.
100%.
And there were plenty of times that the cover art looked awesome, got home, and it was not anything remotely close to what I was expecting. I feel like this game is probably the first one that we've come across that really has that disparity, I think. But I'm sure we'll see it more, but that is an interesting, I don't know, issue that I feel like a lot of these older games had. And especially, why are you putting this like revolution nonsense in a game about, digging holes and puzzles? And mutant cyborg zombies just feels like they just threw stuff at the wall and it was like, what's cool now? Like mutant cyborg zombies. It feels bizarre to me.
It's very 90s. Yeah, bizarre is perfect word. It's like just 90s era cheese, and it does not fit here. That's what I was saying all this time before, is it just, everything here feels so mismatched in a way that I just can't get over. So that's pretty much all I have to say on aesthetics and even on this game. Circling back to our original opinions, it was just a total wash. I would not recommend. Not worth the batteries, everybody.
I agree.
Okay, time to move on to something that I am looking forward to. Are you ready for the quiz?
Let's do it. So I'm currently sitting at around 77%, doing all right. If the quiz treats me like the game did, might not be in a good spot after this.
Yeah,
we'll
and there's no redo or instant exit to the menu on this one either. Ready for question 1?
Let's do it.
Okay. Lode Runner has a pretty long history as a piece of software. It went through many iterations over many years before it ended up in the form that most people, like me, know it today. But its original idea is actually borrowed from an arcade game that came before it. What was that game? Was it A, Space Panic, B, Pac-Man, C, Cubert, or D, Dig Dug?
So while I was scrolling through the Wikipedia, I did
Oh no, prior
happen
knowledge.
to read this. Yeah, so my research is, I guess, working.
Your research paid off.
Had I not, I 100% would have picked Dig Dug, but I'm pretty sure it was Space Panic. So that was A?
Yes.
All right, yep, that's going to be my final answer.
It was A. It was Space Panic.
Let's go.
All right, so...
Yeah, Dig Dug was a great...
Yeah, I threw that in there because I was like, do I give him a fake answer that I think he could link to game about digging holes, or do I that one was originally, I think, Centipede, but I changed it because I felt like being a jerk. But one of the original designers of the game that would become Lode Runner was told by a friend about the arcade game Space Panic by Universal. And it's a game probably not many of our listeners will have a whole lot of experience with. It's definitely an older arcade game. But when you compare them, it's pretty obvious that they share a lot of the same ideas. And in Space Panic, you also have a character moving around, climbing up ladders and platforms, and digging holes to trap enemies. But, and this is kind of what makes me want to give Space Panic a try, when you dig a hole and trap an enemy in it, you then take your shovel and smack it on the head to make it fall through the ground. And that's what your goal is to like clear out the aliens or whatever. So I might check that one out. Game. Okay. So you're off to a good start. You're back on your first question answered correctly. So let's go for question 2.
All right.
While not necessarily the first game to do many things in its time, Lode Runner does have its own distinction in the video game history books. While arcade games were on their way out in the US, the same was not the case in Japan. And in the year that Lode Runner was ported to the Japanese arcade market, is it true or false that it was the very first US-made game to ever do so?
You know what? I'm going to say true. I have no idea. This was not something that I read, but I'm going to say true.
It was true.
Yes. Let's go.
A report in Computer Gaming World magazine during the 1985 Consumer Electronics Show in Chicago details how Lode Runner was, quote, the first American game ever turned into a Japanese coin-op arcade game. Lode Runner's parent company saw great sales that year from the port, and there was even a Lode Runner competition at the event that was being filmed for Japanese TV, and they had like Lode Runner t-shirts and stuff like that. Like, it would have been so cool if there were pictures of this, but it was just like a written article section.
Yeah. Complete guess, but we did it. We got there.
All right, 2 out of 3. Are you ready for... Let's go for 3 out of 3.
Perfect score.
Perfect score. Okay. Question 3. Speaking of remakes and ports, Lode Runner sure has had plenty of those. In the 1990s alone, we saw several versions of the game, some of which were never released in the US. Which of these, though, was not a real game in the Lode Runner franchise? A. Lode Runner The Lost Labyrinth for the TurboGrafx 16. B. Lode Runner 3D for the Nintendo 64. C. Lode Runner vs. Bomberman for the NES. Or D. Lode Runner Online The Mad Monk's Revenge for Windows and Mac.
I cannot fathom that they had Lode Runner versus Bomberman. So I'm going to go with that one.
So final answer C?
Yes.
It's C. 3 for 3.
Yes. Let's go.
Yeah, actually, Bomberman did star in Lode Runner on the NES, but
Really?
as the enemies. So it wasn't a specially titled game like I had made up Lode Runner versus Bomberman, but Hudson Soft, which is the company that made both Lode Runner and Bomberman for the NES, reused the enemy robot sprite from their Lode Runner game as the original Bomberman sprite. So in the Japanese versions of Lode Runner and Bomberman is a prequel. So it links the two games together, and Bomberman is a robot that becomes the Lode Runner. It's wild stuff.
Bizarre. All because they wanted to reuse assets.
Hey, I'm all for it.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, now up to 79%. So getting closer to the B. But,
so close.
Yeah, but we'll maybe next week. Maybe next week I'll break into the 80 percentile.
Yep.
But I think that brings us to our listener question.
Okay. For everybody at home, Lode Runner, similar to Sokoban that we previously covered on the show, continues to have new games pop up every now and then from one company or another, usually for modern systems though. Lode Runner, however, recently had a 2022 release on a much older system than even the one that our show is focused on. Which system was it?
Well, I guess we'll find out next week.
I know. I'm sure you could wager a guess, but have to wait and find out.
So I think that brings us to the end of Hyper Lode Runner. Thankfully, we never have to think about this game again.
Phew, yeah, we're going to have to tool the ranking and figure out where this one's going to go.
Worst of 1990.
So far,
yeah. Thanks for listening to Critical DMG. If you would like to support us further, please leave a review wherever you get your podcasts and maybe recommend us to your friends or anyone else you know who might like the show. It really helps us out, and we really appreciate it. Join us next week when we talk about Solar Striker.
I'm excited.
I really want this to be a soccer game, but I don't think it is. I think it's probably like a...
I've played this one already.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I've played this one already recently, so I could tell you what kind of game it is, but I don't know. Do you want that spoiled or not?
I'll go in blind. So
okay.
Join us next week, and you'll find out what kind of game it is as well.
Yes. All right. Well, see you then, everybody.
Bye-bye.